What if I told you that the secret to happiness isn't hidden in your past? That it doesn't depend on being praised, validated, or even liked by others? Sounds pretty bold, doesn't it? We live in a world where approval seems like the most valuable currency. Social media likes, workplace applause, even those silent expectations from friends and family shape us more than we'd like to admit. We bend ourselves to fit what we think others want, always chasing after that elusive nod of acceptance. But here's a twist. What if real happiness isn't about fitting in, but having the courage to be disliked? Hey everyone, I'm Bix, and welcome back to Bix Book Summary, the channel where we don't just skim books, we dive deep, pull out the most life-changing insights, and figure out how to apply them in our everyday lives. Today, we're exploring a book that genuinely challenges and inspires me every time I revisit it. The Courage to be Disliked by Ichiro Kishimi and Fumitake Koga. Presented as a powerful conversation between a young skeptic and a wise philosopher, this book flips our understanding of happiness, acceptance, and freedom upside down. It's an invitation, almost a challenge, to let go of our dependence on approval, shed the weight of our past, and embrace a truly liberating way of living, one rooted entirely in personal responsibility and authenticity. Now, let me be clear, this isn't your typical motivational read. It doesn't offer quick fixes or neat tricks. Instead, it gently draws you into a meaningful dialogue, one that questions your assumptions about trauma, success, relationships, and self-worth. It asks us to bravely confront our patterns, our fears, and ultimately, the invisible scripts we've been following all our lives. Throughout this journey, we'll uncover transformative truths. We'll explore why your past doesn't define who you are today, how desperately seeking recognition can trap you in unhappiness, and what genuine freedom feels like when you step away from external expectations. Sure, some of these truths may make you uncomfortable at first, but trust me, on the other side of that discomfort is genuine empowerment. So if you've ever felt trapped by the fear of judgment, if you've held back your true thoughts because you worried about other people's opinions, or if you're just exhausted from chasing approval that never seems to fill you up, you're exactly where you need to be. This could be the shift you've been waiting for. Let's dive in and discover what it truly means to have the courage to be disliked. Many of us walk around with our past hanging from us like a medal, or weighing us down like heavy baggage. We carry childhood wounds, heartbreaks, failures, and traumas, believing they shape who we are today. We often say to ourselves, I am this way because of what happened to me, finding a strange comfort in giving meaning to our pain, a justification for the paths we choose. But in The Courage to be Disliked, the philosopher gently but firmly challenges this entire notion. Drawing from Adlerian psychology, he presents a radical idea. Your past doesn't actually matter. Not because your experiences weren't real or because your pain wasn't genuine, it certainly was, but because your past doesn't have to control you. Let's pause and reflect on this. This isn't to minimize trauma or pretend our hurts aren't valid. They absolutely are. Rather, the philosopher is pointing out that we often cling to past experiences to justify the behaviors and choices we make right now. When we say things like, I can't trust anyone because I was rejected as a child, or I'm afraid to fail again because of my past disappointments, the philosopher asks us, what if these are not the real reasons but convenient stories we tell ourselves? In Adlerian psychology, we don't act based solely on our past. Instead, we set certain goals in our present moment and then selectively reference the past to justify pursuing or avoiding those goals. In simpler terms, it's not our past determining our actions today, but our present goals, like avoiding pain or seeking safety, that shape our choices. This is admittedly a challenging and sometimes uncomfortable reframe, but it also holds within it an incredible promise of freedom. Because if your trauma isn't your destiny, if your heartbreak doesn't need to be your blueprint, then suddenly you're no longer bound by your history. You become the author of your story again. Consider this brilliant example the philosopher gives. Imagine someone who insists, I can't make friends because I was bullied when I was younger. Adler would gently correct this by saying, actually, you're choosing not to make friends right now because you're afraid of being hurt again, and you're using your past as justification. Yes, it's confronting, but also deeply compassionate. Because when we stop viewing our past as an immovable script, we gain something immensely powerful: agency. We start asking ourselves, what am I choosing in this moment? And why am I choosing it? This isn't about blaming ourselves. It's about empowering ourselves. It's about acknowledging, yes, that experience happened, and it shaped me. But I'm here to live fully now, not endlessly replay what's behind me. The truth is, the moment you believe your past defines you, you become frozen in place, like a statue crafted by someone else's hands. But when you understand that your present choices matter far more than your old wounds, you start to move again. You become fluid, dynamic, capable of rewriting, reshaping, and reimagining your own life. And this is exactly where genuine healing and growth begin. Because you're no longer stuck trying to fix what happened. You're actively building a future so vibrant, hopeful, and fulfilling that the past fades into irrelevance. So here's the heart of it. Your story is important, but it does not control you. You are not permanently broken because something once broke you, and you are not condemned to repeat the patterns of your pain. You're here, right now, and you're free to choose differently. This is the profound freedom that the courage to be disliked offers. Not by denying your pain, but by having the courage to declare clearly and confidently, yes, that was my story. But today is not the end of it. It's simply a new beginning. Let's be real. Most of us care deeply about being liked. It's part of being human. From the moment we're born, we're wired to seek approval. A loving smile from a parent, a sticker from a teacher, a high five from a friend. Then it becomes likes on social media, praise from our boss, validation from a partner. That external yes makes us feel safe. It makes us feel like we matter. But the courage to be disliked doesn't just ask us to examine that tendency. It calls it out, boldly, as a trap. A beautiful, seductive trap that looks like love but slowly robs us of our freedom. The philosopher delivers a line that's both simple and earth-shaking. The goal of life is not to be liked by others. It is to be true to yourself. And for most of us, that truth is terrifying. Because so much of what we do, how we present ourselves, the way we speak, the pictures we post, even the career paths we choose, is shaped by one silent, persistent question. Will this make people like me? But when your self-worth becomes dependent on recognition, your life stops being your own. It becomes a stage. You start performing instead of living. You start acting instead of being. You say what you think will get a reaction instead of what's real. You slowly become a stranger to yourself, presentable, likable, agreeable, but hollow. And the tricky part is that recognition feels good. It's addictive. The moment someone claps, you want to hear it again. You start giving up pieces of yourself to keep the applause going. You say yes when you mean no. You hide your quirks, soften your edges, and smile when you feel like crying, all because you're afraid the real you might not be accepted. But here's the quiet cost of that constant approval seeking. You disappear. You blur yourself out so much that even you forget what your true colors look like. The philosopher suggests a different kind of courage. Not the loud, rebellious kind, but the quiet, steady kind. The kind that whispers, "This is who I am. I know not everyone will like it, and that's okay." Because here's the paradox that hits deep. The more you try to be liked by everyone, the less you're truly seen by anyone. You become vague, polished, predictable, easy to digest, but easy to forget. But the moment you stop chasing approval, something magical happens. You sharpen into focus, your voice becomes clearer. Your relationships get deeper. You show up, not as a character in someone else's play, but as the author of your own. And yes, some people will pull away. Some might misunderstand you, reject you, or walk out. That hurts, but it's also liberating. Because what remains are the people who see you, who resonate with your truth, who connect not with your image, but with your essence. There's a beautiful moment in the book when the young man, frustrated and scared, asks, "But if I stop trying to be liked, won't I end up alone?" And the philosopher replies with calm clarity, "You may lose relationships, but what you'll gain is dignity." Dignity, not in the sense of pride or ego, but in the gentle, rooted sense of knowing, I'm not bending anymore, I'm not performing, I'm not tweaking myself to please someone else's expectations. I'm just being, honestly, fully. And from that space, real connection begins to grow. The kind that doesn't need masks, the kind that doesn't demand perfection, the kind that only truth can create. So here's the truth this book dares us to embrace. You don't have to shout to be heard. You don't have to be rude to be real. You don't even need to be understood by everyone. You just need to live with the courage to not need everyone's applause. Because the moment your worth stops depending on recognition, you don't just become more authentic. You become unstoppable. How much of the stress, frustration, and emotional exhaustion in your life comes from wishing other people would just behave differently? You offer heartfelt advice, but they ignore it. You try to help someone you love, but they push you away. You explain yourself over and over again, hoping they'll finally get it, but they don't. And somewhere along the way, you begin to carry the weight of it all. Other people's decisions, their reactions, their refusal to change. But what if you didn't have to carry that anymore? What if you could let go of the emotional tug-of-war, the constant internal dialogue that says, if only they would listen, if only they understood me, if only they would change. In The Courage to be Disliked, the philosopher offers us one of the most freeing concepts in the book, the separation of tasks. It's simple on the surface, but absolutely revolutionary in practice. He explains that in any situation, before reacting, we should pause and ask two questions. Whose task is this? Have I crossed into someone else's task? A task is just what it sounds like. Any responsibility, outcome, or decision that belongs to someone. And here's the liberating truth. If it's not your task, it's not your responsibility. Let's say you offer someone honest, thoughtful advice. You've done your part, but they dismiss it or they continue repeating the same patterns. That outcome, that's their task. Your task was to show up sincerely. That's it. Whether they listen or not is not yours to carry, or take approval again. Whether someone likes you, respects you, agrees with you, that's not your task. You can speak your truth with kindness, you can show up in integrity, but how others receive you, that's up to them. Their judgment is their work to process, not yours to control or fix. This shift changes everything. Because so often, we exhaust ourselves trying to do other people's emotional labor. We try to protect them from failure. We over-explain, hoping they'll see our side. We internalize their disappointment. We sacrifice our peace for their reaction. But when you start asking yourself, is this my task? You begin to reclaim your boundaries, your energy, and your clarity. If your partner is unhappy, you can hold space for them, but you can't fix them. That's their task. If your child is struggling at school, you can encourage and guide, but their learning, their motivation is ultimately their task. If a friend distances themselves, you can reach out with love, but how they respond, that's their task. And this doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean you become indifferent or cold. It means you become wise. It means you understand that boundaries are not walls. They are lines of love that say, I respect your journey. I respect mine too. And from that respect, something beautiful happens. You release the anxiety that comes from trying to control the uncontrollable. You stop manipulating outcomes in the name of love. You return to your own lane, your own growth, your own healing. Because peace doesn't come from managing everyone else's life. It comes from managing your own. So the next time you're emotionally drained from trying to explain yourself, fix someone, win someone over, or make someone choose differently, pause. Take a deep breath and ask, is this really my task? And if the answer is no, let it go. Let it go with love. Let it go with grace. Not because you don't care, but because you finally understand. You have your own work to do. And that's more than enough. We've been conditioned to believe that happiness is something to chase. Like a finish line we'll cross once we've finally made it. Get the degree, land the job, find the right partner, buy the house, collect enough applause, likes, promotions, or milestones, and maybe then, just maybe, we'll feel that inner sigh of relief, that elusive moment of finally being enough. But if you've ever actually hit one of those goals, the kind you once thought would change everything, you probably noticed how fleeting that high really is, how quickly the thrill fades, how soon a new target appears. The applause stops, the compliments quiet down, and once again you find yourself wondering, is this it? So what is happiness really? In The Courage to be Disliked, the philosopher gives us an answer that feels like a deep exhale. He says happiness doesn't come from what you accumulate, It comes from what you contribute. It's not about having more. It's about giving more. Not about proving your worth, but living it. And yes, that might sound simple, but in a world that constantly reminds you that you're falling behind or that someone else is doing it better, it's actually a radical act. The philosopher calls this living in the now. Not in the cliché, picture-perfect way we see plastered across social media, but in the grounded, powerful act of releasing comparison and choosing presence. It's about stepping out of the endless race of competition and into the richness of contribution. Think about it. From our school years, we're trained to compete, to measure ourselves by grades, ranks, awards, job titles. We start to believe that success is scarce, that it only counts if we're doing better than someone else, that we're climbing a ladder, and our place on it matters more than the direction we're actually going. But here's the truth the book gently brings us back to. There is no ladder. There's only now. This moment, this connection, this opportunity to give something of yourself to the world. When you focus on contribution, the pressure lifts. You're no longer asking, how can I get ahead? You're asking, how can I show up with presence and authenticity, right here, right now? And from that mindset, meaning begins to unfold in quiet ways. You find fulfillment not in being seen, but in seeing. Not in being praised, but in being present. Not in winning, but in connecting. You listen more deeply. You create with more heart. You work with more care, even if no one's watching. And somewhere in that shift, the desperate need to be validated just dissolves. You stop needing to constantly prove your worth because you're living it with every small act of contribution. This isn't about killing your ambition. It's about purifying it. It's no longer about ego. It's about service. No longer about being admired, but being useful. Not about scarcity, but about impact. And the beauty of this mindset? It frees you. Completely. You're no longer a prisoner to the chase. Your joy doesn't hinge on outcomes. It's rooted in who you choose to be, not how others respond. Because comparison creates disconnection, but contribution creates connection. And it's in those moments of connection, real, raw, human connection, that we discover the peace we've been chasing all along. So if you're tired of performing, of comparing, of running toward a finish line that keeps moving, maybe it's time to stop asking, what's missing from my life? And start asking, what do I have to give right now? Because happiness doesn't wait at the end of the race. It meets you the moment you show up with your whole self. Contribution isn't a detour on the path to happiness. It is the path. There's a quiet ache that lives in so many of us, so soft, so subtle, that we rarely even name it. It's the ache of constantly adjusting, toning ourselves down just enough to fit in, choosing silence over honesty, softness over strength, safety over truth. We smile when we want to question, we nod when we want to disagree, we shrink, shapeshift, and perform, all for the sake of being liked. All to avoid the sting of rejection, judgment, or disapproval. But the cost of that constant performance? It's you. And that's why this book isn't called The Courage to be Independent or The Courage to Speak Your Truth. It's called The Courage to be Disliked. Because that is the real fear most of us live with, not just being challenged or corrected, but being cast out, misunderstood, abandoned, left on the outside of belonging. Yet in the middle of that fear, the philosopher in this book says something that stops you in your tracks. You cannot live freely if your happiness depends on being liked. That one sentence holds the key to emotional freedom. Not because being disliked is enjoyable, not because rejection doesn't hurt, but because if your peace hinges on constant approval, your life will never be your own. You'll always be editing yourself, micromanaging your personality, walking on emotional eggshells, hoping to keep everyone comfortable, even if it means betraying yourself. Real freedom asks more of you. It asks you to speak up even when your voice shakes, to make choices that align with your values even if others don't understand, to stay grounded in your truth even when the crowd moves in a different direction. That's courage. Not the loud kind that demands the spotlight, but the quiet, steady kind that lets you walk forward alone if you have to. The kind that says, I'm not here to be everyone's favorite version of me. I'm here to be real. Because once you stop chasing validation, you begin to reclaim something far more precious than approval: your integrity. It doesn't mean becoming harsh or rebellious. It means no longer living as a watered-down version of yourself. It means honoring your boundaries, even if it means being misunderstood. It means accepting that you're not everyone's cup of tea, and letting that be okay. Because when you live for likes, you become a mirror reflecting back what others want to see. But when you live with courage, you become whole. Yes, some people may pull away. That's a loss. But losing people is not the same as losing yourself. And when you finally stop editing your truth to earn applause, you begin to connect more deeply with yourself and with others who see the real you, not just the version you've curated. This is the invitation at the heart of the courage to be disliked, to stop twisting, shrinking, and smoothing your edges just to be accepted, to let go of the illusion that peace comes from never upsetting anyone, to realize that true peace comes from standing still in your truth, even when it's uncomfortable. Because the people who truly see you, love you, and respect you, they don't need you to perform. And the people who walk away? Let them. You are not for everyone. But now, finally, you are for yourself, and that is where real happiness begins. At its core, the courage to be disliked isn't a call to provoke, rebel, or push people away. It's a quiet, powerful invitation to come home to yourself. It's about realizing that your past no longer gets to dictate your future, that you don't need applause to be worthy, that trying to control how others see you will never bring peace, and that happiness doesn't come from being popular, it comes from being whole. If something in this message resonated with you, if it sparked a moment of clarity or cracked open a deeper question, do me a small favor. Like this video, drop a comment sharing the part that hit you hardest, and subscribe to Bix Book Summary. This is the space where we don't just talk about books. We let them challenge us, move us, and bring us closer to who we're meant to be. You'll find a link in the description to grab the full book. And trust me, this is one you'll want to sit with, reread, highlight, argue with, reflect on. It's not just a book you finish, it's a book that finishes parts of you that were never truly yours. And before you go, I'd love to hear from you. What's one part of yourself you're done editing? What mask are you ready to take off? Drop it in the comments. I read every one. Until we meet again, stay grounded, stay honest, and stay true. Because you don't need to be liked by everyone to live a beautiful life. You just need the courage to be yourself. I'm Bix. See you in the next video.